Yari. The Yari is one of the traditional weapons of Japanese warfare, maybe one of the first. It's basically a wooden staff that would have an iron, either triangular or some type of blade that was used for stabbing and thrusting. In most cases, it was three-sided blade, and it was sharpened on all three sides. And also at the end here, sometimes there would be an iron ball or a hook where you could hook into the armor and lift up, or you could cut or grab and pull. You know what I mean? So this was either the end was used just as much as the poking end. So both ends of the Yari were used exclusively the same. Obviously, you want to be able to thrust this deep into the body, but just as equally on this side of it, you want to be able to strike, hit, disable a sword, or open up a spot for you to be able to penetrate the blade into it. Just for a note, the Yari would be taken to the battlefield, and if the blade was cut off and you were left with a stick, that's where the birth of rokushakubo, or basically the stick fighting end of it, the 6-foot staff that we train in. But most of the warriors would start off. This was a cheap weapon to make compared to the forging that it took to build a katana. So if you were a foot soldier or an entry-level person, samurai, the Yari was probably the first weapon that you would take into battle. This is going to be based off of movements of Kuki Shinru. Right? So basic Reiho, as always, is going to be here. Negeshimasu. If I'm bowing to a partner, I'm going to have the bow in my right hand and the blade down. I'm going to bow here. Onegaishimasu. With the Yari tip pointing out front. So it's not parallel to my body. It's a little bit out in front. So if I was bowing and I was attacked, this motion was easily done to be able to strike at my opponent to stop him. So I didn't want to have it straight out here. I'd want it out a little bit in front of me. So it was very easy for me to be able to strike with this motion here, right? Another thing with the Yari is that the left hand is generally going to be palm up, and the right hand is going to be palm down. A lot of times with Roshakubo or just the Bojutsu, both hands are in the same position. The Yari, the main difference is your left hand is primarily going to be palm up most of the time, okay? And the right hand palmed down. Right? That's going to be a major difference between the Yari and the Rokushakubo. Also, starting with some of the kamais are going to be very similar to the Roshakubo, but know that the kamais originally came from the Yari. So the kamais that are used in Rokushakubo, or just the regular bow fighting or stick fighting, originally came from this weapon. This was the source of all of that. So a lot of the kamais are going to be the same, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but I do want to show you some of the differences with them. All right? Kamai section. This is kamai number 1, Seigan no kamai. Again, left hand, palm up. I'm going to be able to put this back here on my hip, and the tip into his eyes, and my body down into the Ichimonji stance here. This is going to be Seigan no kamai. Having this tip pointed towards my opponent's eyes, moving around here. Seigan no kamai. Next, kamai number 2, Jizuri Seigan no kamai. Jizuri Seigan no kamai. A little bit different is from Seigan no kamai. Take the right foot, step back some, pull this left hand in. So I'm down. The butt of the Yari is either on the ground or just lightly touching the ground. There's a lot of reasons for this. Some examples are, I'm actually feeling behind me as I'm retreating backwards some, right? So I could be in kamai, and if I'm attacked, this is moving out of the way. I don't want him to hit my Yari, so if he goes to swing for the blade, I don't want him to accidentally cut my blade off. So one of the ways I can defend this is moving it back here. And it's almost like I still got this into his eyes, and I'm still ready, but this is down the ground. Or maybe like I'm slowly gonna walk backwards, you'll hear it hit the wall. That's going to let me know where the wall is. So The rear end of it can be almost like I'm feeling, like almost like a blind person. I'm feeling with the stick behind me. One aspect of it. Another way is I can actually put this down into the ground so if something can get impaled on this, holding it down. Like if I had a 50 or 60 men and we all went back to this position and dug the tips into the ground and we just kind of stood here, or maybe a charging horse would come on. This is one aspect of this kamae as well. So I'm moving away from my opponent hitting the blade, using this back on the ground, and then also having it, third, lastly, very small amount, is almost like an impaling where I'm driving it down to the ground to make it very sturdy, where I'm building a wall of people kind of holding my ground. That kind of feeling there, right? So, Seiga no Kamae, and then take a small step back, bring this down here. Jizori Seiga no Kamae. Seigan, Jizori. The next kamae is Chuda no Kamae. From Seiga no Kamae. Bring this up underneath of your armpit, down. Here, Seiga no Kamae. Having this bow level to the ground. This is very much moving forward type of posture. From here, being able to thrust at my opponent. Chuda no Kamae. Next, Joda no Kamae. From Seiga no Kamae. Rotating this above my head. Chuda no Kamae. Rotating this above my head. Again, palm up on the left side. Joda no Kamae. Next, Geida no Kamae. From Seiga no Kamae. Leaving this end in your hip, lowering this down. Pointing this down towards their feet. So from Seigan is generally your starting position. You would bow, you would go to Seigan first. Then you would take any other kamae or you would start your kata. So there's a pattern of always bowing Reiho. Onegaishimasu. From here, bringing this Yari center, coming to Seiga no Kamae. Then I can do whatever pattern I want to do. When I'm done, go back to Seiga no Kamae, up, out, bow, step back with the left foot, and relax. So I can go from relaxed, step in, Kamae, onegaishimasu. And kata, to, to. When I'm done, Seigan, Kamae, domo regato. Step back, relax. So that's the basic pattern, right? So we were on Geida no Kamae. Tap, toki, top of the person's foot. Here, to, to. Even forward hand. Hey! So backhand push, forward hand push. Both are attacks from Geida no Kamae. Next, Hira no Kamae. Left hand is always palm up, right hand is palm down. Like Hiriichi Monji no Kamae, or Hira no Kamae, I want to have 3 balanced sections here, right? So I don't want to be like this. They don't necessarily need to be the exact space, but it needs to be relatively balanced. I don't want my hands too close or too wide apart. So a little bit shoulder width, palm up. Hiro no kamae. Same thing of the feeling of not letting anyone get past me, protecting something very important behind me, having my energy go out and around and enveloping your opponent. From this posture, being able to stop people from moving forward. Here. So that's the feeling of Hiro no kamae. Next is Kihon. Like Roshakubo from Jodan no kamae, Kihon is going to be off and slightly lower, more of a taunting. Jodan is very protected. Kihon is down. Kihon is moving. Kihon's a transitional position. I'm here. I'm here. Very alive. When I get into Jodan no kamae, normally the opponent knows that I'm well defended. And he's going to try to counter to the left or counter to the right. He may taunt, he may fake, but I'm well protected, I'm well guarded. So from that position, being guarded is very good. But since my opponent has no open, obvious attack, he's going to try to get one. He's going to try to earn one. He's going to try to work for one. And as he does that, he becomes unreliable because I don't know what he's going to do. So if I need to stop his movement, Jodan's a very good kamae. Stop their movement. By stopping them, you're taking control for that 1 second. Now, I need to keep control. Moving to Kihon no kamae now gives him an opportunity to attack my head, to attack certain parts of my upper body. From Kihon, I can prepare for that. I can be just as prepared for Jodan. I don't want to say that Jodan's a weak kamae if someone's attacked. It's a very, very strong kamae. So strong, it may limit your opponent's ability to attack. Therefore, it becomes very, very, very unreliable, and you don't know what he's going to do. With Kihon, I can start to control his movements. I can start to control his moves left and right, and I can start to control his attitude forward and backwards, and I can start to see exactly what he's thinking about doing. That gives me the advantage because I'm starting to predict my opponent's movements by giving him openings. They're not really weaknesses, they're just perceived openings. Like here, my head, my center line is very well protected. Here, even though my blade is here, this side is now more open. The head is more open. Even coming into this side of my body is open because it's going away from the blade. So when he comes to this side or this side, I have attacks prepared when training with Kyokushinryu with these kamae. So from Kihon, I'm manipulating him to move in a certain way to attack a certain spot. This is like stop. This is like, okay, let's fight. Right? So difference in attitude between Jodan and Kihon. Next, Tenshi no kamae. Big weapon, I'm inside the house, I'm going to be a little bit careful. Because I barely have room. But here is Tenshi no kamae. Right? I want to have my left arm pretty much horizontal to the ground. This is in tight along the weapon. This is about one fist or right around my elbow. The bow is in line with my side of my head. This is allowing me to be open. This is here. So when I move with my kamae, I want to have this bow next to my head, not back here. Right? So from Seiga no kamae, this hand comes up, this comes down. Tenshi no kamae. Here, up, down. Come on. Damn it. The last kamae, Shizen no kamae. Like Roshakubo, Shizen no kamae is here. This can be a reiho or bowing position, but it can also be a kamae. lot of times this is thrown, slammed down. Use the back end, you know, stepping front end down. So from Shizen, you can do a lot of postures, and a lot of attacks. Shizen no Kamae. Here are some Kihon for the Yari. Technique number 1 is called Ichimonji. From Seiga no Kamae, or basically from any Kamae, this is the ability to be able to thrust using a straight line. A straight line. So thrusting in a straight line. Next, number 2, it's called Kikusui. Kikusui. Being stagnant, stationary, is sometimes easy to see the thrust coming. So what I want to be able to do is, I want to be able to move the Yari. I want to be able to keep the Yari in motion. I want to be able to move it. So when the thrust comes, it's a surprise. Some people can say you can cut Kuji. In kyo to sha kai jin retsu zai zen tung. Or kanji, cutting the nin kanji, cutting the kanji of fear, cutting the kanji of perseverance, sending that out. But basically what you want to do is keep this moving. So it's a difficult target for the swordsman to hit. Moving this front hand, back hand, but at any time in the movement, being able to thrust. So he gets captivated with the moving of the Yari, and out of nowhere the thrust comes quickly. Stagnant. Kutsu. That's the difference between the two. Number 3, it's called Maki Zuta. Maki Zuta is using the length of the Yari to try to deceive how far or close you are to your opponent. So from Seiga no Kamae, I can be moving forward some as I move the Yari away. And it may look like that I'm moving backwards, or I can be doing both, making it look like I'm very far away, but still being in reach of my attack. So this is basically using the Yari to make it look like I am further away, when yet I'm still in basically the exact same spot to be able to attack, right? So playing around with the Yari distance. So I can be here, you know, it looks like I've moved further away. So that's gonna make him come in closer. And when he does, he's gonna realize that I was in the same spot to give my advantage. So play around with the distance of using this hand and changing it from all of your kamais. So it looks like I'm moving further away. And realistically, I'm not. Right? The next principle is called Hiru. And basically what Hiru is doing is teaching me to be able to, from any kamai that I'm using, and being able to leap up, strike, and thrust. So I'm going to be able to do a 180. Some type of an attack is coming. I I'm going to leap and thrust. The trick of this is on my leap, being able to cut and then poke. So if I was to cut through the neck, I'm going to poke through the slash that I made. If I cut through the chest of the armor, I'm going to poke through the cut that I made. So part one is learning how to cut and then poke through that same exact spot. It takes a lot of skill to cut, poke into the same spot. Here, cut, poke, same spot. Cut, poke, same spot. But that is a Kihon for the Yari.